Falkniven A1X, new for 2019. These are big blades, 284 millimeters long, or if you're in America, 11.25 inches long. The blade length is 6.5 inches with a cutting edge of a little bit less than that, just over 6 inches. In Australia, looking at a blade length of 161 millimeters and a cutting length of about 157 millimeters long. The blade thickness is 7 millimeters thick at the spine. That's 0.275 inches. The steel is laminated COS to 60 Rockwell hardness. It's a drop point blade. It's a convex grind from about halfway down, and it is satin finished. They do a black version as well. The weight of this thing, 13 ounces, 401 grams. These are made in Japan, designed in Sweden by Falkniven. Blade HQ will sell you this for $300 US, Knife Shop AU for 429 Australian dollars. It's a bit of a pricey one, but I guess you get a lot of stuff for your money. Hey my friends, welcome to the Knife Lab. Look, I've solidified my thoughts on a knife that I've been sitting on for a while. I've gone to use this every time I've had a big blade job outside. Usually before that I would grab at least this, probably my Golok machete or my outdoor axe, but at least this. So I've gone and I've grabbed this guy for everything that I've needed to do with regard to if I want to make a little fire in the backyard with my kids, to do all that sort of fire prep stuff, even to light brush clearing. I've got a big dead tree that's come down that every now and then I dig away out and put in the green bin and get recycled. So I've been pushing this into all those jobs. I've struggled with this one because I love Falknivens. I love the company, I love most of their knives, except for this one. This one it's fun, it's a huge amount of fun, and let's go into the positives first. It's well made, it's got a great steel, it's actually fairly enough priced. Still too expensive when you consider what, and I always say, you can get from custom makers and things like that in the fixed blade realm, but for a production knife you can get right now, it's a moderately priced blade. It's cheaper than the Pro Series, and it's made of a huge piece of laminated COS steel. So I think value-wise, it's not outrageous. It's still expensive, but not outrageous. So there's that. It comes with a great sheath. The sheaths of the X Series are the best Falkniven sheaths so far. They've got an extra bit of stoutness to them, and they have a locking lever, so the knife won't any longer. That's the S1X sheath. Where are you? It's on my hip, of course it is. So I'll show you with the X1. So now there's a locking lever, so the knife no longer will fall out when you hold it upside down. So that's great too. So some really good moves here, and in fact I love the additions they made with the X Series when it comes to the S1. The S1X has become probably my favourite fixed blade that's not a handmade. This or the F1 Pro are probably really neck and neck in terms of my favourite basic sort of campish fixed blade knife. A1X not so much, however. My main issue with this is that they've added the thickness, but the thickness isn't usable particularly without them having added length as well. So I pick up my A2, which is a large Falkniven survival knife in the old series, and it's got an extra 1.5 inches or even 2 inches of blade on this. This is about an 8-inch blade. This is the solid 6-inch blade. The thinness is lesser, so this is 1/4 inch thick and this is 7 millimeters thick, so over 1/4 of an inch thick. This is still a better chopper. The reason they would put extra weight on something is to make it more durable and I guess to hit harder. I guess it would hit harder if you threw it off a building, because it does weigh a bit more. It would probably double kill the person it landed on rather than this, which would just single kill them for sure. However, when you're using it in a outdoor scenario, trying to harness that weight to do outdoor jobs, you still find that the longer blade is the one that's going to cut better for you. So if you're trying to grab a knife that you can use as a quasi machete, and no knife will ever be as good as a machete for doing your things like your limbing, but this is the minimal size that's actually still enjoyable to use or comfortable to use for doing stuff like taking off small branches or doing some light firewood splitting or anything like that. The only thing that the extra thickness at this size range is really going to help you with is things like prying or battening wood. And I mean, this will still batten wood as well, I would say, and it's probably going to batten some wood even better because of that extra length. When you're looking at rounds of wood or bits of wood to split, where you're concerned that they're going to be so hard and so difficult to split that you need that thickness, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're probably going to be longer than this blade as well. So really thinking about optimum battening, you're still looking at a less than 5-inch across piece. So the thickness here I think is made mainly to make us feel, to appeal to that whole, if it's heavier, it's higher quality, and it's, I guess, more hardcore, I think. I think the actual more useful tool is going to be the A2 even still. And I think what they should have done was keep the A1X, the original A1 thickness, which was this thick, a 1/4 inch thick, even a little tiny bit less, I believe. Still a plenty durable knife. And I think they would have been better off making an A2X at this blade length with this blade thickness. Then you truly would have had a chopping beast, something that would have actually used that, the physics as well as the weight to do some really good chopping, so to speak. So at the moment, all this extra weight is doing is making it more tiring to use. I don't particularly notice this destroying wood, even when I do a fairly standard wooden board chopping test. Why am I doing this? I just find it's just not quite, doesn't feel much more competent than a smaller knife even. It's just not the job that a knife of this length is ever going to be good at, really. All you can do to make these sort of knives good at that is to give them big K-bar Warthog style smash it sort of heads with big blade face here. That's all you can really do to keep the length down and the chopping up, and by maybe putting a more curved sort of pistol style handle on it. Like, you're going to have to still think mechanically to get a good chopping knife. So yeah, chopping and battening, the two things I think that they're kind of selling this to be best at, I actually found that it's not particularly best at all. And then moving back to the S1X, a knife that I really do like a whole lot, and I'll probably do a much more positive review on this one later. This one you can still control really well through your more standard cutting tasks. So this is still a thick knife. Like that's not, that's substantial. It's a little less than the A2, or maybe it's about the same. So it's still about 1/4 inch, and 1/4 inch, it's needed Falkneven's good sharpening skills to keep it competitive at all. But luckily it has them. So this does cut and perform really, really well even still. But even still, this is a bit of an ordeal to do something of a fine job with. A bit more, at least, than, say, this Benchmade Bushcrafter, or, even from Falkneven's terms, an F1, When you grab the A2 and try and do something like cutting up a lime, or slicing thin bits of anything off, the thickness is such that it actually doesn't quite interact with your brain how a normal knife does, and you find yourself actually having to think around the spine to the edge, and it's a bit of a visual block. It's an interesting phenomenon that I found every time I've used this knife. You can't just, and I guess for a gun it would be the best analogy would be just being able to point, sight and shoot really quickly with a gun. This one, you really have to fiddle with and make sure you have to double check before each cut. You have to think twice, cut once. Measure twice, cut once. Whatever the analogy is, I think that's the second one. Which isn't that great when you're trying to just use a knife for on-the-go jobs. So that's sort of something else. The thickness is just stopping it from being good at everything. And I'm not adverse to thick knives. I love big, thick, stupid blades. They're so much fun. But they just needed to give it a little bit extra length as well for it to be particularly good at much more than some very sort of narrow theoretical jobs that you could find for it to do. Absolutely, I could go and find some red nasty wood and split it without worrying about it at all. But in terms of stuff that I'm really going to use it for, it's just kind of left hanging, I must say. So, well made. moderately fairly priced with a great sheath. Those are the pros, just not quite sized for any of my normal jobs. And hey, I'm just one knife reviewer. There may be someone out there in the perfect climate, the perfect environment, with the perfect flora and fauna around him or her to use this to its optimum, but it ain't me, babe. Thanks for watching, guys. Sorry it was just a quick one, but I've just had to sort of just sit and I don't love dwelling on a knife that I don't love so much, so there you have it. The Falcon Even A1. One thing I forgot to cover in this take was that I do much prefer the enclosed handle for comfort. Impact tasks as well as the cold makes the slab style handles just a little bit less favourable to me. I have never really been too bothered about the little bit of extra additional strength that full slab style affords you, but you may be different.